7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, Uganda at the center of diplomacy and conflict resolution. Is the country exploiting its potential as a regional superpower to foster peace? Uganda has for long been regarded as a regional superpower owing to its central role in taming conflicts within the Great Lakes region and most recently in the Horn of Africa. This development has prompted the West, mainly the United States, to choose Uganda as a major partner in the war against terror. The recent visit of the U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to consult on regional issues can attest to this fact. Today, the Great Lakes region faces yet another threat with the ensuing rebellion in the DRC, which has partly been linked to Rwanda and Uganda by a UN report. As a result, Uganda is hosting the International Great Lakes Conference with the aim of ensuring that the conflict is contained amidst calls to drag Rwandan President Paul Kagame to the ICC. Many people are now wondering, can Uganda, which has been linked to this conflict and others in the past, help in dealing with this challenge? That aside, there are major concerns being raised by Ugandan legislators about some critical issues that are crippling the Ugandan foreign policy and diplomacy in general. 2 months ago, Acting Foreign Affairs Minister Henry Okello Oryem stunned the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament when he explained the pain Ugandan diplomats go through and how it has jeopardized the chances of the country in many aspects. The committee, which had toured Ugandan embassies abroad, also highlighted many challenges, including the possibility of host countries or cities taking over Ugandan properties for reasons which will be explained further during tonight's show. So tonight we look at efforts to bring peace in the Great Lakes region and the challenges that the Ugandan diplomats and foreign service staff are facing in promoting the image of the country and safeguarding its interests. Our guests tonight, Honorable Wamanga Wamai, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mbale municipality MP from the FDC party, but a veteran diplomat, was a diplomat for a quarter of a century. You're most welcome, Honorable Wamai.
Thank you very much. Good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Honorable Alex Byarugaba, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, also Member of Parliament for Isingiro South and from the ruling party, NRM. You're most welcome, Honorable.
Thank you very much. Good evening, listeners.
Honorable Wamanga Wamai, how successful is Uganda's foreign policy?
Today, Uganda's foreign policy has got a lot of challenges because the foreign policy emanates from the internal policy. Now, when things are running well in the country, it's easier for the foreign service officers to carry out the foreign policy. But when things are not going well internally, it becomes very difficult to carry out the foreign policy. Now, to carry out the foreign policy, you must have a well-trained and remunerated foreign service officers. Well-trained. You must look at the ministry well. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is one of the most important ministries in any government in the world because they play a very important role, because we're in a global village and we have got people out there. So the ministry is very important. Now, if the ministry is not looked after well, it becomes very difficult to carry out the mandate of the foreign policy. Now, this extends to the missions which represent this country abroad. Now, if these missions are not well taken care of, and the officers serving in those missions are not well trained like we see today, then it becomes very difficult. A foreign policy of a country emanates from the United Nations Charter, from the Charter of the African Union. Now, why did the UN start? The UN started in 1945 because of the Second World War, to bring peace to the world, to make sure countries live in peace, that you have neighbors, that you get on well with your neighbors. And that's how the UN started. And one of the cardinal parts in the UN Charter is that there must be peace between countries. The AU later on comes into existence, also talks about peaceful coexistence with the neighbors. And that's the role that must be carried out by the Foreign Service, by Foreign Service officers, by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But today, it's very difficult for Uganda to carry out all this policy, foreign policy.
All right, we'll go into the details of this, trying to dissect the foreign policy vis-a-vis the what you call internal weaknesses.
That's right.
We'll look at those in detail. Honorable Byarugaba, first of all, do you think Uganda will be seen as a neutral arbiter in the DRC conflict? We have a summit going on today and tomorrow.
Well, the fact that they are here, I think, points to something very, very important. That the pointer is that Uganda is a regional power. We must acknowledge that, as far as peace and reconciliation is concerned, refugee settlement and that kind of stuff. So Uganda certainly plays a very neutral role in our regional politics. Look at what has been happening in Sudan, South Sudan, and the original Sudan. Look at what was happening in Rwanda and what came out. Look at what is happening in Somalia and what is coming out.
Even the DRC.
Even the DRC has, well, we've not, I think,
before
got the real stuff from DRC. But I think we are on the right track. I think most certainly, and that's why I think all leaders agreed to come and settle their disputes, conflicts within our own backyard here in Uganda. And I think this is something very, very fundamental in as far as our politics is concerned. That means people look to us. They look to us, to Uganda, to sort out their problems.
Right.
This is no mean achievement.
Let's draw a line somewhere. Rwanda has been accused of being partial in that conflict. Draw some lines for us. It might be obvious to some people, it might not be obvious to others. Why is Uganda being seen as a neutral force and Rwanda is being seen as a partial force?
I have particularly not read that report, but I did visit Rwanda myself in about 3 weeks ago, call it. I particularly went there to see what is exactly happening. To verify these allegations. I had a 3 days visit to our embassy and I met many people, even Ugandans in Rwanda. We have very many Ugandans living and working in Rwanda, and they all said, please, for goodness sake, save us that headache. We are not interested in that war. At least we are not involved in that war currently going on between the soldiers, actually of DRC. And I wanted to find out whether actually Uganda was involved. And true to what I had suspected, from the information I got, from the interviews I carried out, I conducted, and went inside. I had even an opportunity to go further inside to find out exactly what was happening. The Ugandans were very annoyed and angered for the disruption being caused by that war. So they are not essentially involved. Look at what exactly happened, for instance. 600 soldiers, the Rwandans, they
crossed over.
The Congolese soldiers crossed into Uganda. They were disarmed. 2-3 days down the road, they were put on vehicles and taken back. Why couldn't they have been given more shelter, a lot of weapons to go with? It was an open secret. We are not, I think, as far as I'm concerned, from the diplomatic point of view and from politics. I mean, I'm a member of parliament and the chairman of foreign affairs at that. The information I gathered personally, I would have been very happy to openly tell Ugandans that, look here, as a representative of the people, I saw ABCD. I never saw even soldiers nearby trying to cross. You know, it is very easy to detect. Even Ugandans in Kigali would tell us they never, and they have not seen something similar to that.
All right, we'll take
and
that.
I pray it doesn't happen.
We'll take that as an informal official record.
Honestly.
There. Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, Uganda at the center of diplomacy and conflict resolution. Is the country fully exploiting its potential as the regional powerhouse to foster peace? Our guests, Honorable Wamanga Wamai, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, also MP from Mbale municipality, and Honorable Alex Byarugaba, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, also Member of Parliament for Isingiro South. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion at some stage. Honorable Wamanga, briefly, you've worked through several regimes, 25 years. Give us a little bit background about your work before you can analyze for us Uganda's foreign policy today.
Well, I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1981. I was posted to Denmark in 1986 to 89. I came back and worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for about 3 years. Then from there I was posted to Uganda Embassy in Rome, where I served for another 4 years. Came back, headed the Department of Asia, Europe, then was posted again, and I served in China, and my last tour was 2002-2006. So I put in 25
years of diplomacy.
Well, now, during this time, of course, I attended a number of conferences, training.
I would like to get, there's a perspective I'd like us to get. The NRM has treated you well. They gave you the diplomacy job. Why did you criticize them going to the FDC?
No. You see, there's a difference between a political appointee and a civil servant. I joined as a foreign service officer, civil servant through the Ministry of Public Service. I was interviewed, and I joined in 81. So I've served as a civil servant throughout. We have what we call career diplomats, and then we have political appointees. So that's the difference. I was a civil servant, a career diplomat. Therefore, you serve all governments. I served the government of Obote. I served the government briefly of Rutwa. I served the government of Mwanga briefly. And now, when NRM came to power in 86, I served in
them with one hat. Tell us about the NRM's record in diplomacy. Is it a good one?
Well, you see, as I told you earlier.
Functionally.
As I told you earlier, a foreign policy is delivered from the internal policy. If there are problems in the country, therefore, it becomes very difficult for the diplomats abroad to carry out the foreign policy. Because everything, what is happening in the country, is known all over the world. So at times they say diplomats deceive and tell lies here and there. But today it's very difficult to tell lies, because what is seen in Katre, what is happening in Katre, in Mulago and the Mulago round
is on
YouTube globally. So you cannot tell lies, because the people are seeing what's happening in your country. So it becomes very difficult. The issue of democracy, you know, freedom of expression, people being beaten here and there, walk to work when people are talking of high prices of fuel, high prices of goods, and people are attacked and beaten and thrown on trucks. This is being seen.
Oh, but they're destroying people's business. What do you want police to watch?
Not at all. When you walk to work, it does not mean you're going to...
No, there's a political intention. You wanted to recreate the Arab Springs here, which did not work.
Not at all. You see, what we are saying, we say it was very expensive to live. That the life had become very expensive. Prices of fuel had gone up.
Where is it cheap?
The cost of goods had gone up. So we are saying people are paying taxes. They are paying high prices for fuel. And these taxes go to government. What have the people got out of these taxes?
We'll get deeper into that. But yes, for now, Hon Byarugaba, what can we expect out of the Kampala meeting?
Well, I do hope, just like you'd hope, that this Kampala summit really gives us what everybody expects. Peace. Peace should prevail in the eastern part of Congo. Peace should prevail in this region. For goodness sake, I think our generation needs to be given some breather, some peace. Honestly, the generation of our times has not seen peace. And I think it's a high time we gave them this peace. We gave ourselves this peace. This is my expectation. My expectation is that the leaders of this region will come out with something fundamental, an agreement, a protocol that will bind them to work for peace and not for conflict. That there is no conflict that has no space on the high table for peace. And I think we've seen it all. It's not war all the time. War is destructive. You spend a lot more resources, lives lost, time, mention it. So I think we should start cultivating amongst ourselves. Even me and Wamanga Wamai, he's from FDC, I'm from NRM, others were from DP. They are all our friends. I want to commend him. Jack Wamai Wamanga. I've personally visited our embassy in China, Beijing. Oh my God, he put up a fantastic show. You should see the property he acquired for Uganda. That was good. That was very good. So we must acknowledge the fact that we are not perfect and that we must live together as a human race.
Let's look at this particular...
My hope is that at the end of the day, tomorrow, there should be some semblance of peace in our region.
Let's define that peace. Rwanda's President Kagame has been accused of sending troops into the DRC and fomenting that rebellion. He's denied it. What is he going to say between today and tomorrow?
I don't want to be seen as a spokesperson for Rwanda's government.
You're an analyst. You give us the scenario. He's been accused of sending troops. People are cutting aid, the US, the UK.
But His Excellency Paul Kagame has also come out very open and said, no, look here, you people, you are misunderstanding the whole thing. The fact that you see Tutsis in the war, the leaders maybe are Tutsis in that war, the M23.
Ethnic Tutsis.
Ethnically, these are Rwandese. You have Rwandese Tutsis in Uganda. You have them in Rwanda. You have them in the DRC. For goodness sake, where do you want them to be? And the fact that they are there, they also have their own human rights. They have their own internal squabbles and problems. And I think the problem is to leave that actual big problem of the ethnic Tutsis there and try to think that it is Rwanda now hobnobbling with them and trying to overthrow the other country. The moment we don't go down to find out exactly what is happening, why are these people on rampage, or why are they rebelling against their own government? Because we must acknowledge the fact that those Tutsis are there and they will be there, and they are Rwandese, they are Tutsis, but also they are Congolese.
All right, we'll talk about the proposed joint force. It was proposed in Addis Ababa.
It was a very good proposal.
What can be expected from it? Hon Wamanga Wamai, what do you think is Paul Kagame's dilemma?
You see, you must look at why the International Conference on Great Lakes started. Why did it start? It started in 2006 because of the endemic conflicts in the region. Why has the Great Lakes region been a region of conflicts, of insecurity? And that's the whole reason why this Great Lakes region conference started. Because of conflicts among the countries. Look at what has taken place in Congo. Look at what has taken place in Uganda, in Rwanda, in Burundi. So that called for a regional organization to fight these conflicts. Now, why are there conflicts anyway? In Congo, for example, why were there conflicts in Rwanda, in Burundi, and in Uganda? The Rhodes Resistance Army. When you look at the internal policies, is what causes problems.
Let's look at the DRC.
DRC, you look at the last elections. What happened in the last elections in DRC?
Talk to us about what happened.
There were conflicts. The results were contested. That the elections were not free and fair. And if people see that the elections were rigged,
rebel groups will come up.
Rebel groups will come up.
Let's talk about the internationalization of this conflict. Rwanda's involvement, alleged involvement. How does it come in?
You see,
what do they benefit?
Rwanda knows that there are groups in Congo trying to overthrow the government of Rwanda. That group is there. It also worries Rwanda because Rwanda is not settled, because across its border there are people trying to fight. And Rwanda, possibly, of course, officially, Rwanda has denied that they are not involved in Rwanda, I mean in Congo. But the UN report has come out and pinpointed. Hillary Clinton was here and talking about it. Western countries are saying Rwanda is involved. But official Rwanda says they are not involved. But if Rwanda was involved, possibly they will have a reason, because they have got a threat across the door. Maybe if there was a new government, could possibly work with Rwanda. And Rwanda is pointing fingers at Kabila simply because there are people on Kabila's land, country, destabilizing Rwanda. And that possibly could be the reason why Rwanda would come and support the M23. Now, I'll give you an example. There are Tutsis in Rwanda, Tutsis in Uganda, Tutsis in DRC.
Even in Burundi.
Even in Burundi. Yeah. Now, when Rwanda was fighting its war, I I took a minister of regional cooperation of France to go and meet the president. I was heading the European department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
To meet the which president? Our president.
Meet our president.
Yes.
And this French minister said, Mr. President, but your soldiers are fighting in Rwanda.
Which year was this?
When the war was going on.
1994.
94, yes. He says, Mr. President, we have seen your vehicles. Your vehicles are in Rwanda.
I also saw them during the conflict.
And
the official
Uganda is
there sometime.
You know, and they said, look, even the people who are fighting with other names and so on. The president said, look, we have got the Mukasas here, and if Mukasas are around, it's difficult to tell. So if there are Tutsis in Congo, and Tutsis in Rwanda and in Uganda, it's very difficult.
Which was a smart excuse. Is it a smart excuse, the one that Paul Kagame is giving now?
Well, I won't... of course, he denies that they are not there. And they would say there are Tutsis who are in Congo. They are the ones fighting the war. But the language is the same. So it becomes very difficult to differentiate. Are these Tutsis from Rwanda? Or are these Tutsis from Congo? Or these are the Tutsis from Uganda? It becomes very, very difficult.
Hon Byarugaba, how do they go around? How does Paul Kagame go around this?
But I wanted first to correct the impression created by my colleague, my senior colleague, who is a shadow minister. Yeah, true. There were maybe those vehicles who could have been seen. I wasn't in the foreign service at that time. I was not there. But you also recall vividly, we have to put this history in proper perspective, that the president himself came out clearly and told the international world, the international community, that look here, a section of Ugandan soldiers from Rwanda, originally from Rwanda,
yes,
who were within NRA,
have
escaped from their barracks and invaded their motherland, Rwanda.
Yes. In October 1990. He was at the UN.
Yeah,
you see? No.
There's no difference.
Go on.
I wanted to say that it was not official. It was not an official venture.
Some people think he looked the other way.
He was not even around.
He was at the UN in New York. But some people, and then he went to Paris. And then, anyway, some people think he looked the other way.
That's beside the point. We all knew what exactly happened. These guys left, invaded Rwanda, and they started a war of liberation. Thank God they succeeded. And
now we can admit what we did for them.
Yeah.
How does Paul Kagame get out of this? Because he has this intricate dilemma. There's a force across the border which could overthrow him if they wanted, if they got help from Kabila, and Kabila is not being supportive. Do you think if Kabila came and said, I'll rein these people in, the conflict would end?
No, we are trying to look, and I hope the presidents, these summits, will come out with something a little bit better and smarter.
What is
like, for instance, look here. What is the biggest problem? Why should there be a conflict in Eastern Congo most of the time? That means actually that the state of Congo is weak, particularly in that region. Let's face it, if we are to analyze the situation as it is. The situation in Eastern Congo is, I think, a free-for-all.
Yes.
That's why you find a host of all sorts of rebel groups. All sorts of insurgents run to that place. That means the state
is a bit weak.
Very little control over that region.
Right.
That's one. Number two, how can we sort it out as neighbors? How can we sort it out? We are in the process of trying to integrate politically, socially, economically as a region, a bloc. Maybe if they could convince DRC to join this other bigger bloc now, the East African community, it would maybe minimize that.
Some of those gone.
Those
are dynamics that will take a couple of years. Of course, the DRC, some people think it's one of the countries that are...
Yeah, but if that one came out, it would give confidence to the people in that particular region.
That is hope.
And also, don't forget the colonial mistakes that were committed in that country. Remember how it came about.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
So they are still now playing back and forth. And this is some of the results.
This is Spectrum on Radio 1. We'll be back after this break. Don't stay tuned.
You can pay, you can buy, pay your bills, pay school fees, send cash overseas, pay taxi fees, and salaries, anything you need.
You can do anything
everything with MTN mobile money. And now, for the first time in Uganda, you can even pay your electricity bills. Go to your MTN mobile money menu, select Pay Bills, select Umeme Touch Pay, and follow the prompts.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
John, Mike, and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to one like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special.
You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. Uganda at the center of diplomacy and conflict resolution in the region. Is this country exploiting its potential fully as a regional superpower to foster peace? Our guests tonight, Honorable Wamanga Wamai, veteran diplomat, now Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, also Mbale municipality MP. Honorable Alex Byarugaba, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, also Member of Parliament for Isingiro South. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion, or you can send a text message to 7197. That is Spectrum message, question or comment. Send it to 7197. It will be read on air. Honorable Byarugaba, what's the root of this conflict, the DRC conflict?
As I was saying before we went on for a short break, I think the conflict has a lot of tentacles in the history of that country. We all remember how DRC was coined out and given to one person to run. Congo is bigger than the entire Western Europe. How many countries do we have in Western Europe? Very many.
More than a dozen.
And a very good leadership, but you still find problems. And what about a huge country, no infrastructure, the terrain is so bad, forests, lakes, rivers, no roads, no administration of sorts, under one government in Kinshasa, thousands of miles away. So I think that one, we must look at it from a real serious perspective. We may as well go ahead and say, look here, Kabila, why don't you come out with a serious decentralization of your country? Regional governments, very strong regional governments.
No, but you can't force
autonomous
him. You can't show him how to manage his country.
Exactly. Well, you can advise. Otherwise, we might end up with a situation like we have in Southern Sudan, which...
Honorable Wamanga.
Yes. That's my take.
Give us your own analysis. How can this be resolved, really? Look at the roots and how they can be disentangled.
You see, the situation in Congo is very complex. Of course, when the Belgians handed over Congo at the time of independence, that country wasn't developed at all. And it has remained like that. Look at the Mobutu era. He did nothing. One ruler.
He used to wear leopard hats.
Leopard hat and so on and so on. So he left the country undeveloped. So there's no infrastructure. It makes it very difficult for one sitting in Kinshasa running the huge country. And that's why you find Eastern Congo is on its own. It wants to set up a state of its own. It becomes very difficult for one to run it. And that's when you don't exercise democracy in a country, you get up all these groups coming up to fight for their survival and for their recognition. And if the elections are attacked, they show where the election is. If elections are not run fairly, then you are causing problems in the country. Now, how does Congo get out of this?
Yes.
Of course, Kabila must accept that there are groups there which are fighting.
Yes.
Him. The M23, he must accept and talk to them because they exist. They are in there. And for the sake of peace, he must talk to them. And they find a solution to the problems of Congo. Well, you see, the soldiers when the fighting was on, many people were killed. Refugees came across Uganda. You can see what has happened in the country now. The talk is that possibly the Ebola came from there because of people who crossed to Uganda. These are problems. So Kabila must accept. And as the talks go on in Munyonyo, we hope there can be a solution. There can be a solution that these Great Lakes countries, 11 countries, find a solution. Now, if Kabila cannot accept that there is a regional force to bring peace, to bring Kabila on the table with the M23, then there must be a force.
So you're saying that the force should work towards bringing the rebels and the government to
yes, they must agree.
Is that something you agree with, Honorable Byarugaba?
Well, another one I wanted maybe to add on in addition to what my colleague is saying is M23 must be brought to a halt, first and foremost. There must be peace. The civilians, those unfortunate people who are not armed, who are not involved in this unnecessary conflict, are the ones suffering most. So, first and foremost, the regional leaders should say, in order for a halt of these belligerents,
cessation of hostilities,
they must cease now, immediately. Then they go into the details of discussions on how to untangle some of these small here and there conflicts.
We have our own experience, 1985 in Nairobi. Museveni was a rebel at the time. They had peace talks in Nairobi. They said, let's cease hostilities. Because the state was weak, he took over.
The situation was very different. I think it's not comparable to what is happening now with the M23.
But M23 would like to take over.
M23.
Why are they fighting? They want to get to Kinshasa and take over.
Well, you think they want to sell potatoes in Bunia and other places? They want power in Kinshasa.
If you have been reading lately what they want, honestly, they are trying to say, hey, look here, you must listen also to our grievances. The M23. They are part and parcel of Congo, by the way.
Yes.
These are soldiers, they are soldiers of DRC,
yes,
who have rebelled against their own states. And they are saying, you must listen to us. So the other side must also listen. But to listen, there must be some peace. You can't just discuss an issue when bullets are flying over you.
Who's going to enforce that peace? Maybe you can.
That's why maybe the regional powers.
How give us a modus operandi for this planned joint force, which was agreed in Addis Ababa?
Yes, but the leaders haven't agreed on how peace is going to be brought in DRC, because some are proposing that they must have a regional force, but some are against that. And the other view, some are saying maybe we bring an international force with neutral countries.
But there is already an international force.
No, that's the UN, which is incorporated in stabilizing the Congolese peace.
Yes.
That one is there. But it's also shooting at M23. So that one becomes difficult.
It's not neutral anymore.
So it's not neutral anymore. If you want a neutral force, they must not be seen to be backing one side. So there are three views. Regional force to bring peace in the region, which has got to be funded by the 11 member states.
Yes.
But when you look at the economy of these countries, it becomes very difficult really to maintain a force in there.
Which is your second option?
My option will be an international force to bring peace in DRC.
Yes.
Now, when they bring peace, when their hostilities have stopped, then they can start negotiating. But first of all, Kabila must accept that the M23 exists. Now, how do we achieve peace? He must accept that they exist, and he must sit at a table. And the people to bring that peace must be an international force from different countries, not using the UN force that is there, that is already.
But how would you get another international force if you are saying this international
it's
force?
Already been agreed. The UN is there, but it's not working. So the AU they agreed that in the December.
I would rather maybe we take on the regional force.
No, but you have the money to maintain the force in there, to put in the equipment.
Well, it's not money, but the spirit and the resolve.
You need equipment. The spirit alone cannot bring peace.
Spirit is willing, but the body is not.
The body is
strong.
No. Well, I don't think
you need equipment. You can imagine for us even trying to chase the LRA, Road Resistance Army. We needed equipment.
So, Honorable Wamanga Wamai, there seems to be agreement that this joint force will need foreign support. We have a regional force getting money from abroad.
Well, me, I'm going for an international peace. You are going for
What's wrong with the regional force?
International force that is composed of different countries. The regional force, I can see the weaknesses.
What are the weaknesses?
We have our soldiers now depleted. We've got soldiers in Somalia trying to
not too many.
We'll bring peace there. But then we have got also soldiers trying to chase all these resistance army. And then another force sending to DRC. It becomes very difficult. And it's expensive. You are talking of money.
Well, 11 countries.
You are talking of equipment. You are talking of tanks. You are talking of helicopters. You are talking of planes, reconnaissance planes. So it's quite expensive. Now, when you look at these 11 countries, they don't have the money.
Congo has had
a huge country.
We need powerful aircraft.
Powerful aircraft.
Congo has had a lot of that international force you've had. Ever since I think I started, going to school. What UN world? I think it has failed. Let's accept this issue and resort to our own small resources. I want to tell you, look at what is happening now in Somalia. What happened? Uganda went in alone on its own
with Burundi. Little support.
Very poor countries.
Then Kenya was sucked into it. They were reluctant.
What is the situation now like?
No, but I think
money. It's only determination and the resolve. You can send the money, and the money is this UN force in Congo is very well maintained, well equipped. They could have stopped maybe the M23, but they have the will and the resolve. Maybe they don't have, which I think the regional powers may have. If Uganda, you talk of Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Burundi, Southern Sudan, maybe all these regional states, I think they can contain that situation.
My friend, fighting a war is not an easy thing.
It's certainly never an easy thing, my friend.
An easy thing.
That's very true.
And when you look at the cost that is involved in a war, is when you can now accept and.
But I'm only trying to say, heavy reliance on international force has not provided any solution. A regional force, to me, makes a lot of sense.
Let's talk about the Foreign Affairs Ministry, a little bit back on diplomacy. Do they get the money they need? The acting Foreign Affairs Minister the other time was complaining that he sits in next to the kitchen, another diplomat seated next to the cockpit.
Well, these are some of the problems. I'm going to make a reply on the floor of Parliament, but I want to sympathize with the colleagues left in the ministry. I want to sympathize with Honorable Oriem. He lamented. And these are some of the issues we talk about. There's no need to come and lament, and you are part of the system.
The lamentations of
lamentation of Okero Oriem, lamentation of the permanent secretary, lamentation of the ministers in there, and lamentation of our missions abroad. It's pathetic. When you go and visit our missions, and you see the conditions in which they live a lot to demand.
They live in Bwais instead of Kololo.
Yes, they live in Bwais instead of Kololo. You look at the properties, they are leaking. The other time one of our colleagues was in South Africa. She came and told us on the floor of Parliament that she saw the residence of the ambassador leaking.
The house where he stays.
Where he stays. We're in Denmark. We visited the residence of the ambassador. It was leaking. Now, what we have not understood in this country.
But in the morning,
after heavy winter.
In the morning, he wears a suit and goes to the office.
Yes, he goes to the office.
The suit he managed to keep dry.
That's right. They're leaking. Now, what happens is in Europe, the severe winter.
Yes.
And after winter, you must do a retouch to your property. For us, in the budget of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in the budget of the missions, there is no capital development. So you find these properties which were acquired during Bote's time, Ameni's time, they have gone to waste.
Have we acquired any during the NRM?
Not at all. Look at the Trafalgar Square. Look at our mission in New York. Look at the official residence in New York. Look at Washington. Look at South Africa. That was acquired not long. It's terrible. It's terrible situation. All our missions are terrible. Now, these are the properties. But when you look at officers and you compare what they get with other officers, it's unbelievable.
The salaries they get?
Oh yes, very low. The allowances are very low. I'll give you an example. A third secretary from the Kenyan embassy.
High Commission, yes.
Embassy in Beijing, the third secretary, he gets on a foreign service allowance. But the foreign service allowance is higher than the salary of the ambassador of Uganda plus his foreign service allowance.
And there's a first secretary, second secretary, and a third
secretary.
That's all
yes, and the councillor. Now, ambassador is the highest post in the nation.
That's true. Then you have
but our ambassador in Beijing, his salary, which is foreign service allowance plus salary, does not equal to the third secretary, the lowest rank in the foreign service of the Kenyan embassy. And the Kenyan gets only allowance. His salary is kept at home. And many countries, if I give you the example, you cannot even believe.
So as we
these officers are doing a national service, I keep telling them, they're doing a national service to this country. They are suffering. Secondly, they take their children and the government does not pay tuition for them.
So they are locked out of examination room.
Yes, exactly. Now, what has happened is that these officers cannot afford to take their children, their families abroad, because they cannot afford to pay.
They live in
international schools. They remained here. So officers go around, and the children remain
back home. You don't want to,
which is a terrible thing. And everywhere they come say, "Oh, we are going to do this." We talked that they are going to put it in the budget of this year. But when it came out, it's one of those priorities that was left out. Well, so the foreign service officers are still suffering. Now, one other issue which is important, the recruitment in the foreign service. Some of us, when we joined the foreign service, went through public service. We were interviewed, 30 to 1 position.
These days?
20 to 1 position. These days, people are politically sent in there. And sent into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then asked to be posted to missions abroad. And when you go abroad and you see these people who are posted to missions, they cannot even measure. My colleague is here, we're in Denmark, and we've seen they can't even measure. So they have brought ridicule to this country. We have been embarrassed in international conferences, international fora, and it's one of the issues I've talked about, that the free officers now in missions who have been recruited politically cannot measure. Some of them are even heading departments in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here.
And their cadres. Well, we have to go for to hear from the listeners. So basically you're saying, as we raise the salaries of our executive directors of authorities I won't mention, 36 million, 43 million, we should think about our diplomats.
We should think about people who are outside that are representing us, who are raising our flag outside, because everybody is looking at them.
This is Spectrum on Radio 1. You can call in now. Our number is 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
I'll ask you to switch off your radio or walk away from it. Your name, sir?
Asimwe.
Mr. Asimwe.
I just want...
Spectrum, hello? Good. Paul, yes. Spectrum, hello? Yes. Spectrum, hello. Good evening, your name? Mr. Okay, let's get our final caller. Spectrum, hello? Hello? Yes, sir, your name?
My name is Wamanga.
Yes. Your instruments, Honorable Wamanga.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Mr. Simwe for his comments about thieves who stealing diamonds, imperialists. Well, that one I'm not going to comment on that. What was what did Uganda benefit from where I worked? First of all, I'll start with the last mission where I served. That was China. I brought so many investors, and Mr. Simwe will see what Chinese have done in this country.
Now we even have Sinuk.
Yes, they are coming into the oil. They did put up the Ministry of Foreign Affairs building. They built State House, President's office, Naguru Hospital now, Nakawa Research Institute. They have given loans to Uganda government. They have brought in now a lot of equipment for the roads. And the relations between China and Uganda has improved. I also served in Denmark, where I brought the Scandinavians. I brought the Danish embassy here. I brought the Swedish here. The Norwegians are here. And you know what the Scandinavians have done for this country since 1986.
They give us a lot of aid.
A lot of aid. The High Court here did not even have stationery. But when the Danes came in, they did quite a lot. So there's quite a lot that the Scandinavians have done in this country. And Italy, I also served in Rome. You find the Italians in Karamoja, Italians in the north. So all these missions where we've got, these countries where we've got our missions, they play a very important role, improving relations between those countries.
It's not for nothing when you ask for
investment. Nothing. It's not for nothing at all. But you can see what investors have done here. And they go down.
Oh, what have the investors done?
Well, the investment in the country.
All right.
The other thing I can really ask government is that they should have introduced a minimum wage for our people to benefit. But there's no minimum wage.
All right.
These people come in and trade and take out the money. So our people remain suffering with low income.
Hon Byarugaba.
Yeah, well, I would like to thank all the callers. Really, they were very, very supportive, and particularly Simwe, who talked about in the international thieves. As I had actually alluded to, these are just, I don't know, I don't want to call them names, but I think the listeners have their own conclusions to make. Yes, somebody did say Uganda is not a superpower. Yes, it may not be a weapon superpower, but it has the will and resolve to sort out some of these conflicts within our region, and they have showed it that they can do it. And the examples are quite many: Rwanda, Sudan, Somalia now, and we can even sort out Congo if allowed by the international community in quotes or brackets, whatever it is. Yes, I also I would like to thank Owera for the wonderful outlook he has on towards UPDF. This is something we should all be proud of as Ugandan gentlemen and ladies listening out there, please. All the rest really
Well,
they were very supportive. Bamwine was talking about those who manufacture weapons and Rwanda has no resources. I don't want to comment on that, honestly, because I'm not an expert on Rwanda.
Do you think there might be foreign powers supporting the M23 beyond the borders of the region?
As I told you, these are they are soldiers of DRC. These are DRC soldiers who have just rebelled.
They could have got weapons even from the Congo.
The most important point I had was about resources.
Yes.
For goodness sake, listeners out there, Congo has more resources than South Africa. If you go to South Africa, those of you who have had an opportunity to go to South Africa, it's just like any other country in Europe, if not better.
Yes.
But look at our neighbor, poor Congo.
Yes, yes.
So the other issue brought out by one of the callers, that possibly this is a fight between the powers that be looking for all sorts of resources.
Okay.
You cannot necessarily be shoved under the carpet. So it's also very, very possible. Said and done, I want to thank all those listeners who gave us a wonderful support. But also want to appeal to my most beloved government to start prioritizing foreign affairs.
You should give them more money. We have to go. When you mentioned South Africa, DRC having more resources than South Africa. South Africa controls 1/4 of Africa's economy.
Africa's
we have to go. Thank you very much, dear guest. Honorable Jack Wamanga Wamai, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, also Mbale municipality MP. He was a veteran diplomat. He was a diplomat for 25 years. Thank you for coming, Spectrum.
Thank you.
Honorable Alex Byarugaba, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, also Isingiro South MP from the ruling NRM Party. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond Kizito. Spectrum will be back tomorrow. Up next is the news in English.